Thank you, Mr. President. I rise today to talk about our continuing efforts to change the Senate rules as we begin the 114th Congress. This is the same process Senators Merkley, Harkin, and I used at the beginning of the last Congress when we introduced a similar resolution. At that time, Majority Leader Reid wanted to have the debate about reforming our rules after the inauguration. He was willing to work with us and protect our interests until we could debate our proposals. By doing so, he preserved the right of a simple majority of this body to amend the rules in accordance with Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution. I hope Majority Leader McConnell will extend us the same courtesy if he chooses to address other issues before rules reform. It has been the tradition at the beginning of many Congresses that the majority of the Senate has asserted its right to adopt or amend the rules. Just as senators of both parties have done in the past, we do not acquiesce to any provision of Senate rules adopted by a previous Congress that would deny the majority that right. The resolution I am offering today is based on proposals we introduced at the start of the 112th and 113th Congresses. At that time, many called our efforts a power grab by the majority. But we were very clear. We would support these changes even if we were in the minority. And here we are today, reintroducing the reform package as members of the minority. These changes do not strip minority rights. They allow the body to function as our founders intended. The heart of our proposal is the talking filibuster. The filibuster once was a tool that was used sparingly. It allowed the minority to be heard. Today, it is abused too often and far too easily. I have said many times that the Senate has become a graveyard for good ideas, and the shovel is the broken filibuster and other procedural tactics. The system is broken, but in the last election, I think the message was clear. The electorate said, fix it, do your job, make the government work, and that is what our resolution is intended to do. Our reforms were adopted in the last Congress, but our reforms were not adopted in the last Congress, but we made some progress. Strong support for fixing the Senate led leaders Reid and McConnell to address the dysfunction in the Senate and make some moderate changes. Unfortunately, it did not take long for the leaders' gentlemen's agreement to break down. In November 2013, the abuse of the rules and the obstruction reached a tipping point, and so the majority acted within the precedents of the Senate. We changed the rules to prevent the minority from abusing the rules and obstructing scores of qualified nominees for judicial and executive appointments. Mr. President, I believe that drastic step was unfortunate, but it was also necessary. The minority has a right to voice objections, but not to abuse the rules to obstruct justice, by preventing judges from being confirmed, or by preventing the president from getting his team in place. By changing the rules, the 113th Senate was able to confirm 96 judges, In fact, it confirmed more judges than any modern Congress since 1980. The 113th Congress also confirmed 293 executive nominations in 2014, the most since 2010. That is an incredible change, and it was a bold but necessary action. But it also led to even greater polarization in the Senate. That polarization could have been prevented if the Senate had adopted our reforms at the beginning of the 113th Congress. That is why I strongly urge the new majority leader to continue the change that was adopted in November. It allows most judicial and executive branch appointees to be confirmed by a straight majority vote. And I urge him to continue the progress we made last Congress and adopt the rest of our proposed reforms at the start of this Congress. Anyone who has watched this Senate try to legislate in the last few years knows we still are hobbled by dysfunction. We voted on cloture 218 times, 218 times, just over the last 2 years. To put that in perspective, the Senate voted on cloture only 38 times in the 50 years after the rule was adopted in 1917. We cannot continue down this path. The unprecedented use of the filibuster and other procedural tactics by both parties has prevented the Senate from getting its work done. The Senate needs to return to its historical practice and function as a deliberative yet majoritarian body, when filibusters were rare and bipartisanship was the norm. We believe the proposed rule changes in our resolution provide common sense reforms. This will restore the best traditions of the Senate and allow it to conduct the business that the American people expect. We have one goal, whether we are in the majority or in the minority, to give the American people the government they expect and deserve, a government that works. We said before, we say it again. We can do this with respect for the minority, with respect for differing points of view, and with respect for this chamber, but most of all, with respect for the people who sent us here. The right to change the rules at the beginning of a new Congress is supported by history and by the Constitution. Article 1, Section 5 is very clear. The Senate can adopt and amend its rules at the beginning of a new Congress by a simple majority vote. This is known as the constitutional option, and it is well named. It has been used numerous times, often with bipartisan support, since the cloture provision was adopted in 1917. I will include a more detailed history in my full statement of the record. This is not just about rules. It is about norms and traditions of the Senate. They have collapsed under the weight of the filibusters. Neither side is 100% pure. Both sides have used the rules for obstruction, and no doubt they have their reasons. But I don't think the American people care about that. They don't want a history lesson or a lesson in parliamentary procedure. They want a government that is fair, that is reasonable, and that works. I hope that all my colleagues, especially the new senators, give serious consideration to reform. We do not need to win every legislative or nomination vote, but we need to have a real debate and an open process to ensure we are actually the greatest deliberative body in the world. We changed the rule regarding nominations. That was an important start. But it was the beginning, not the end. We still need to reform the Senate rules, and I ask unanimous consent that my full statement be included in the record as if read.
Without objection, so ordered.
And Mr. President, I ask consent for Senator Franken to be added as a co-sponsor to Senate Resolution 20.
Without objection, so ordered.
And I yield the floor.